for tuning in, everybody. This is JT, and if you are hearing this, you have once again tuned in to the Consequence of Habit podcast. Hey, like always, this podcast is brought to you by our friends at Athletic Brewing Company. In my opinion, the finest NA beer that you're going to get out there. Actually, I'm just going to say one of the finest beers out there. These guys were big in my journey of kicking that nasty habit of alcohol. Fortunately, I didn't have to kick the habit of drinking amazing beer. These guys, they give you your cake and eat it too. So whether you just don't drink, but you still love the taste of beer, or maybe you love the taste of beer, but you got something going on the next day. You got a business meeting, you got a sporting event. I don't know, maybe you got to drive your family somewhere and you don't want that poison running through your system. Well, please do yourself a favor. Check out athleticbrewing.com. And if it's your first time ordering, use the Consequence of Habit exclusive promo code of capital COH20 and get 20% off your first order. All right, this week to the podcast, we welcome Mr. Freddy Shegog. And heads up, everybody, this guy is a bundle of energy. I mean, if we could harness this in some way, we wouldn't have to be worrying about where our next energy source is coming from. So, Freddy's story is amazing. This guy was literally homeless, dealing with mental health issues, dealing with addiction issues. I mean, literally living in a dumpster. And he's gone on to just absolutely amazing things. He's founded something called the Message LLC. And then the whole goal is to inspire, to educate, and just help people create a new life for themselves. And then to bring awareness to the fact that just because you pass somebody on the street and you think that there's no coming back from the state that they're in, this guy's here to prove you wrong. I told you where Freddy came from, and you're going to hear where Freddy is now. What a transformation. So, without further ado, please welcome to the podcast, Mr. Freddy Shegog. All right, thanks for joining us. This is JT here at the Consequence of a Habit podcast. We are honored to have on Mr. Freddy Shegog. And let it be known, I made sure that was pronounced right before this thing started because I was sure to mess it up.
Yes, you did.
But Freddy is from the Message LLC. Freddy, man, I appreciate you spending the time with me.
Oh, bless you. First and foremost, I'm just humbled and thankful to be here. I truly mean that. Thank you for what you're doing. I think it's a gift. I think it's a blessing to the earth that you're promoting stories and you're talking about how habits can change your life. So thank you for that. And thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for having me.
Those are some kind words. I appreciate that. Freddy, I had somebody else in the mental health and the addiction area bring up your name. They said, hey, this is an important dude you need to talk to. So I started looking at some of the stuff that you're putting out, and geographically where we are somewhat close, which actually kind of blew me away as well. But I want to start off in the beginning. If you could just tell us about your path, where you came from as far as a mental place, the highs, the lows, a brief summary and to where you are now.
Well, it's real simple. It's funny when I really look back and think about how far. There's a lot of ways to get into that, but the bottom line is I suffered in silence. That's the bottom line. Listen, when I was 9 years old, I'm a Western PA kid. At 9 years old, I was getting high off my asthma inhaler. I mean, that's just real simple. I always laugh and say, when God made me, he just touched me and said, you'll like more. Ever when I was a kid, I've always done things in excess. I've never done anything without excess. And I think, having success as a child, like playing sports, playing, drums and being extracurricular activities, how you present on the outside can sometimes fool people on how you feel on the inside. Yeah. So you might think that Freddy's okay. You might think that Freddy's doing well because I might get good grades and I might be doing well in drums. And I might be doing well in school and all that stuff. But the reality of it is I'm suffering in silence because I don't want to say to you, I got a mental health diagnosis. I don't want to say to you, I'm depressed. I don't want to tell you those things. Fast forward, bad relationships, bad decisions, not medication, not yoga, not prayer, not the things that enhance my health. I end up in a dumpster almost over 4.5 years ago, spiritually dead, drug addicted, and by God's grace and mercy, 4 years later, things have changed.
4 years.
Yep.
4 years is a short amount of time. And when you tell a guy living in a dumpster, hey, in 4 years, your life can be, you might as well be on another planet at that point.
Yeah.
So, but I want to start off with that. I want to start off with you said on here, God touched me and said, what was the word? Excess?
Yeah, you're just going to be excess.
Excess.
Yeah.
And I do, man. I'm just for myself. I 100% believe that there are things that people are born with, and one of them for me is I suck at moderation. I suck at it. I'm terrible at it. I'm envious of other people that are good at it. That
I understand,
and it comes natural. Acceptance of that is, I think, the absolute key, because if you try and fight who you are and keep telling yourself I can do just like they do, for me, and I want to preference and say that in this world I can only speak for myself, but it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So go ahead.
No, I absolutely agree. And it took me a long time to accept that it did, because my family, the community, the world, it's just not status quo.
Yeah. It's
just not, the best language to be saying in front of everybody, I have an addiction and a mental illness. It's just not, man. People, it's just the way it is. There's a stigma with this. So I had to accept that when I got sober this time, to really dig in my past and say, listen, at 9 years old, you're getting high for asthma inhaler, way before you touch drug or alcohol. Fast forward, the first time you touch a beer, you drink so much, you throw up. First time you touch liquor, you drink so much, you throw up. When you played your Sega Nintendo when you were a kid, you played the video game so much, they burn out. When my mom when my mom gave me Captain Crunch, I ate so many that I threw up and she had to start hiding the box.
Yeah.
When I first had pepperoni, I ate so much pepperoni, I got sick. When I had a blow pop, I ate so much blow pop, I broke out. Like, fast forward, I got 2 years sober, I ate so much ice cream, my cholesterol shut up. I'm using cologne so much that I broke out. When my wife tells me to turn the oven on to 200, I turn it on to 400. Like, it's just the way my brain is. So what I've learned is to accept who I am, learn how to deal with it, and use it for my good, AKA in school. All right, a paper's due on Monday. I done all my homework halfway through the semester. I got straight A's. So, there's a perspective to look at this. This is a brain I got. How can I use it to my ability? And it is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you ADHD?
It's funny you ask me that. If you would ask people to know me, they would say absolutely yes. My my therapist has me now, and my psych, they say no. They think it's alcohol-induced depression, and they think it's anxiety. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Probably. Add it to the list.
So you're clearly a well-spoken guy. You're energetic. You've had like the gift of gab, right? That ability just to make people laugh, to communicate with people. Has that been a crutch? Yeah, because you can hide stuff. You can
absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll tell you why it's a crutch. One, the number one fear in America is public speaking, right? When you're a talker like me, you're going to talk so much that eventually you're going to put your foot in your mouth, because that's just what comes with it, right? The other problem is I think out loud, because I'm a talker. That's how I think. That's how I work. That's how I motivate. And everything you think shouldn't be said. Well, that's part of being me. So yeah, it's a detriment. And like, the way I was raised old school. I was raised by my mom raised me, my granddad raised me. They're old school and they're thinking, they're old school and they're parent. So like, a child really having an opinion, a child really speaking about how they feel, that just wasn't necessarily accepted. They loved me. They were great to me, but there's a certain way things are done. So yeah, having a gift of gab, I tell people all the time, it's taken me around the world, being able to speak. It's financially helped me to be able to feed my family. However, to every good, there is a negative.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I mean by that is when you're suffering, but you haven't come to terms with everything. And again, I'll flip this and say, hey, I was suffering for a long time, but nobody knew it because I can talk. And I could convince you that I was doing just fine. I could convince myself I was doing just fine if I told myself enough.
Yes.
But my actions said something different. You know?
Absolutely. And I'm going to tell you how. Like, I grew up in a single parent home, right? And I was real protective of how my mother looked because I didn't want my mother to look bad because she already had enough heat on her from being in sobriety. You know, she got divorced, and in my family, getting divorced was like a stain. So she was already dealing with enough. So for me to add more on her plate just wasn't fair. Whether right or wrong, that's just how it was. So fast forward that, you know, like, I just never wanted to talk about my personal feelings and personal business to other people of how I felt, because I felt in doing so would be wrong because it wouldn't represent my family and my mother the right way. And on top of that, I'm an African-American man, and we're already dealing with enough on our plate as it is. So me to tell the world that I have this, it just doesn't fit the narrative of how I was raised and where we were trying to go. So that's a lot of the reason why I really stayed quiet about it.
You mentioned your mom's in sobriety also?
Yeah, she got sober. So I got blessed growing up. My mother went to rehab once when I was in third grade. She went for 5 days, and by God's grace, she's never relapsed. She has 26 years.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's amazing. That's
she's
amazing.
a statistical miracle.
Yeah. You mentioned a couple things I want to hit on. So now you start your younger life, and you've already, at this point, you're going excess. You're going hard into everything.
Absolutely.
And I watched a video of you. It's on your website, and you talk about feeling you were brought up or made to believe that you were not smart. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to really get into this. My mother and the people that love me always told me that I was intelligent.
Yeah. And that's what I took from that.
Right. But I was bullied as a kid. Right. And in the environment that I was growing up, I didn't know now, but now I know the racism and the other things that was going on. I didn't have it in me to fight back. It just didn't. My granddad raised me as a Christian, turned the other cheek, right or wrong. I took that to an extreme and would never fight back. And I just didn't have it in me. And I was a small kid. I didn't have that in me.
Yeah.
And peer pressure and all that stuff. And it was competitive. So I was made to believe I was only smart to a certain level. I wasn't really intelligent. I wasn't really, I allowed myself to believe that stuff, which I now know, obviously, by God's grace, being a national scholar, having a full ride, that ain't true at all.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And it's funny that you even mentioned the bully thing, because I was listening to something, I'm not even joking, about an hour ago, and they were talking about just the framework of a kid and how that's developed, and the fact that something like bullying, it changes everything and how you interact with the world. And I used to not think that, man. I mean, because, you know, I would get, that's that childhood stuff. You learn to deal with it. But if you think about it, man, how you deal with that or how you don't deal with that, it takes a lot of reprogramming if later on in life to figure that stuff out.
I'm so glad you brought this up, because I really never get into this part of my life, and I'm thankful for you bringing this up. I can't tell you. I've been spit on. I've been put in garbage cans. I've been choked, punched, all that, right? Mm-hmm. And I never had it in me to fight back. And people would always say, you're weak, you're a punk, why don't you fight back? You're assuming that that's how I am. Mm-hmm. You're assuming that that's what's in me. I wasn't raised that way. I was brought up in the church, and I was taught you turn the other cheek and you pray for them. Give you a story. A kid had put me in a garbage can when I was in high school. I was in like 11th grade. I go home, I tell my granddad. My granddad walks me to this kid's house. He knocks on the door. The dad comes out, and my granddad asks, he said, I just want to let you know this is what your son did to my grandson. And I ask that you please not do that again. And I said, Pop, why didn't you do anything? He said, son, we're Christians. We pray for them. And now we know you're not to be around them. And we hope that that boy gets better. When you're raised like that, you don't think to fight, to shoot, to kill, because you're brought up around somebody that teaches you love and empathy.
Yeah.
So, and that's what people don't get. Like, they just assume you should know how to be strong. Fast forward, as I grew up in life, I don't grow up as with that killer instinct, with that instinct of, aggression. I grow up with, let's figure it out.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. So you can easily be bullied when you're like that. Not because you're weak, but you mentally fight. You don't fight with your fist.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's a big sign of maturity too when you can look at somebody that's doing the bullying and actually feel sorry for him. You know what I mean? And feel empathy, like, man, because there's something going on. The more you dig into that stuff, the more you start to put emotions with actions and why people do stuff, the more you realize, man, that kid's dealing with some stuff. Unfortunately, now you're dealing with some stuff too because you're on the brunt end of it. But that's the way the chain works sometimes. So that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
I think the reason. I mean, I don't know how old you are. I'm a little bit older, but
38.
38. Okay. So we're not too far off. I'm 45. And
okay.
the way that the reason you have audiences, right? The reason my podcast is, I'm blown away. I mean, it's relatively new and I'll see that, hey, it's in 40 different countries.
Oh, what a blessing.
And because the human condition, human suffering, obviously that's across the world. And I was listening to this thing about San Francisco yesterday, and they were talking about, here it is. I mean, you're talking like Silicon Valley. It is financially one of the epicenters of the world, and it's got one of the largest homeless problems in the entire world. So money does not equal happiness, and there is a prime example.
Absolutely.
What is it in this country on the mental health and the addiction side that we're missing? Why can't something like that be figured out?
I think there's two causes of this, and I think this is a great point you bring up. Number one, our foundation isn't health is wealth. For some odd reason, we live in a capitalistic society that we think, and I've always said this, better car, better house, better stuff, better looking girlfriend equals happier life. And what I realize is my life got better because I became a better person, not because I have better stuff. But most people think it's suburbs, Bentley, women, champagne, cars, degrees, clothes. And we still haven't learned, God rest her soul, Anthony Bourdain, Kate Spade, Robert Williams, all legends, all rich, all had it all not here because mental health wasn't the top priority. We still don't see that. Look at all the empires that have ever fell. Rome, look at all the top things that have fallen. Eventually slavery from what it was, and everything stops. No matter how rich and how powerful, eventually things change. If you don't have a mentality of health as well, you're not going to last. And I've always said this to people too. I'll fast forward this. The other problem is until the unaffected are affected, right? Like for some reason in this country, and maybe even in the world, but definitely in this country, I don't care about cancer until I get cancer.
Yeah.
I don't care about mental health until my son or daughter has mental health. Like I don't care about the opioid epidemic until my son or daughter is shooting dope in their neck in their room. Right? Like that's where we're at as a country, that I have to be affected. And that's what I'm trying to change, to where I shouldn't have to teach you to be kind. I shouldn't have to teach you to care. You should just care about the opioid epidemic because kids are dying. You should just care about cancer because people are dying. You should just care about mental health because obviously people are dying, right? So I think that's the problem. We're so busy chasing stuff and we're not chasing peace and faith and love and happiness and fruits and vegetables and yoga and prayer. We're chasing stuff because you know what stuff does? It brings likability. It brings money. It brings fame and all that other stuff that at the end of the day, stuff don't matter.
It brings dopamine. It brings feeling good on a short term.
Yeah.
And not.
I agree. Facts.
But this is why I think we're at a crossroads. Is when you talk about the things that affect, if it doesn't affect you, well, mental health, thanks to technology, man, it is there. It's in everyone's home. It's in your face. It may not be a needle in the neck, but you know, people are escaping.
Absolutely.
They do not like being in their own mind. And listen, I can be guilty. I can be on my phone and I'm clearly running from something. That stillness that I would love to always have in my brain. That is work, and you got it. If you're not putting it in. So I think this is a prime time. I mean, something's got to change. Death by despair is like through the roof right now.
Yeah, it's bad. And I think too, what we all need to understand is policy, right? We got to have the people at the top that are going to make these things a priority. So unfortunately, that means that somebody in that room that's delving out the funding, that's dealing with the policies, they got to have their son or daughter be affected by it in order to care.
Yeah.
And see, that's the problem, that I got to have somebody in a room like me to understand what I'm dealing with, instead of it just being a caring, loving society where we try to make sure. But see, again, capitalism, again, and listen, I'll be the first to tell you, I benefit. You know what I mean? Like since mental health, since COVID, my company has gone up.
Yeah, of course.
It definitely opened doors for me. But the doors that's open, I'm trying to make a healthier humanity. And I just think that we don't have people, unfortunately, as a whole, that want mental health addressed. I think we want to Band-Aid the problem.
Yeah, well, it's not sexy. You know what I mean?
No, it's not. But listen, unfortunately, I know a lot of people right now that still suffer in silence. They're scared to admit their mental health and are scared to talk about it. I get phone calls all the time from all different types of walks of life that don't want to talk about it because they don't feel that their spaces are safe to say, hey, I'm dealing with such and such. It's crazy.
Hey, how do you deal with that responsibility? How do you deal with the constant calls of people that can hear you be vulnerable, admire that, and feel that they can open up to you?
I'm going to be real honest about this. I am very grateful.
Okay.
And I am very humble when I get those calls. I'm going to tell you why. Because power and having knowledge, and the knowledge that I get calls from, if I were to put that out, could really damage. So I'm thankful that God has instilled in me to really want to help and do right by people, because it allows me to really share my experience and help them. I'm grateful when I get those phone calls. I treat it with a care and a gift that somebody would feel vulnerable enough that they would like to talk to me. A true story. I got a call from a family member whose child is struggling. And I told this family member how grateful that I was that they reached out to me, because this family member has seen me in my worst, and for them to reach out to me.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It was mind blowing that they entrusted me. So I'm just grateful, because now I can really be a help to my family and other people that really need it. I'm grateful.
It's a degree that going through that stuff it's like a certification, a degree that nobody wants to get.
Yeah. Mine came with a dumpster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to a lot of people, that degree almost cost them their life. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean,
So, but you come in with a credibility that's tough. That's tough to beat. You know what I mean? Like if you're talking to a counselor and somebody who hasn't been through it, then it's a one-way conversation. Yes. It's they can hear about something, they can learn about it clinically. I don't know exactly what you're going to school for now, but when you come and you talk to somebody and you can express some of the same things, and you can say something and you can see it right in their eye right away, they're like, oh, this guy knows what I'm talking about. Matter of fact, I had on a guest on here, and it was like a vetting process. I said, hey, this is who I am. I'd love to have you on. I've gone through this and this, and it was a back and forth email. I was like, oh yeah, well tell me about that. And it wasn't until I earned, he's like, oh, okay, this guy's he knows what this is about. Right. And that he was willing to open up and actually make the thing work. So, right. I don't know what I'm skipping ahead here. What are you going to school for? Is it, I imagine it's in the same field somewhere?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked me that, because I want to tell you a story about that. So I'm at this conference. I don't want to say which one, because I don't want to make the whole conference seem bad. And I'm going to school for communication.
Okay.
I just graduated Delaware County by the grace of God. I got 3.71 GPA. I made all-state P academic team, which gave me a full ride to Westchester. I'm in the honors college.
Congrats.
That's where I'm at right now.
Okay.
I'm finishing 3 semesters out of my bachelor's. So I'm at this conference before I graduated with my associates, and the lady says to me, I'm giving her my spiel, my elevator speech, and she says to me, what are you doing keynoting and you don't even have your PhD yet? And I said, excuse me? And I said, well, did you eat out the dumpster? She said, no. I said, well, I guess we both didn't pay our dues. like I see, and that's the thing. Like everywhere I'm at, I'm the lowest degree of the room. Every conference I'm at, but I'm there because no matter what that book tells you about addiction, I got an experience in my life that you can't get from the book. I respect doctorates in this because I want one, but there's a life experience and a talent that I have that allows me to be in these rooms. So when you talk about that experience piece, I get it because I go through it. I go through it now. Like I don't get it as much as I used to. But when I first started doing this, they were like, what are you doing speaking here? What are you doing at this conference? And then they see me speak and then they see me tell it. And then there's like, oh, okay, I get now why you're here. So yeah, I'm studying communication at Westchester University. And the reason I'm going for communication is because I'm a communicator. And I want to learn that, and I want to get my doctorate in that so that I can fight and change policy and fight for funding for these health programs at the colleges. Because I'm trying to change it to where they understand if we have a healthy student, we're going to get a straight A student. If we have a healthy student, we're going to have good alumni and good retention. That's what I'm doing.
That's important, man, because the universities, the young people now, I don't even know, honestly, it's tough to even relate because I see the addiction to things like social media. I see people looking at these, using a filter on their Instagram and trying to actually look like the filter.
Totally different world.
It's a different world, man. I would have a very hard time.
When I spoke at my first high school, Pencrest High School, shout out to them, big ups to Pencrest. I spoke there, right? And I remember going around asking the kids. I said, all right, what do you guys want to be? Social media manager, video game designer. And I left like, nobody said butcher. Nobody said own a flower shop. Nobody said be a banker. And I was like, wow, like the world has really changed. What that made me do was get on social media heavy because that's how I was going to be able to connect with them. But the world has changed. You can really grow up now and say, I'm going to be a social media manager.
Yeah, I don't even know what that entails.
Listen, I'll tell you what it entails because I got 4 accounts. I wish somebody ran all 4 of my accounts. Do you know how much easier that would make my life?
It's probably the reason this podcast has a ceiling because I started getting on it, and when you said excess, yeah, that's me. Like I literally I realized I can't do this because I was on it way too much. I had to step it up, and because of that, I honestly think it affects on growth because that is how people communicate now. So it is,
absolutely, yeah. They pay people to do that job. Of course, it affects growth. It affects your spelling. It affects your vocabulary. Yeah. It affects how you deal and interact with people. I know people right now that they can't talk to people face to face. They can text you,
right?
But they can't have no. Look at internet dating. Look at the world. You could go right now and say, I want a Catholic that's 6'5", that weighs this much, that cooks on Sundays and likes to flower. Search. That's the world we live
in. All right, let's back it up.
Yeah.
Because I'm seeing you on the other side. I want you to talk about the struggle a little bit more. I want you to talk about the how the demise started and what got you into being in a dumpster, because I think that really even adds to the other side of it.
So I always have a saying, healthy people attract healthy people. I was unhealthy. I thought by getting that stuff that I talked about earlier with you, that could cover up for all the flaws. I end up in a very unhealthy relationship. Everything you can imagine that goes on in that relationship. I moved to Philadelphia. When I move out here, I get success quick. I'm working at a shelter, teaching men how to read and write and give them soft skills. I'm involved in a local church. I mean, I'm thriving, but it's outside thriving. I call my mom and I tell her, hey, I'm doing well. I told you it wasn't me, da, da, da. She said, Freddie, you can dress a pig up. He's still a pig. And I didn't get it. I thought because I had that stuff on the outside, money and clothing and all that other stuff, I was okay. Fast forward, I learned a lesson. I can attain anything, but I never maintain it because it's built on garbage.
Yeah.
I end up, what it took me to earn in almost, say, a year and a half, I lose in like 4 months. I'm downtown, I'm homeless, and I'm dumpster diving. All because I thought that I could get stuff to cover up all the flaws that were going in me. I remember saying to myself, I drink to take away the pain. I go to VIP to be around all these women to take away the pain. I want to feel better, and this little weed will help me. And like, just I used to think like that. But it wasn't until I really ended up in that dumpster that I realized that I have a real life illness. And if I don't attack this illness with health, with medication, with therapy, with prayer, I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make it. And I went to rehab and I got busy.
So you're helping other men at the time as far as?
Yeah, I'm helping other men, giving them jobs. I mean, that's another thing about Philadelphia. I want to say this, and I want this to be on the record. You can have a record in Philadelphia and get a great job. I've seen it. I've seen people with some of the worst records known to man get federal jobs and get paid great. I just want to say that. Wow. But yeah, I was helping men I was teaching them how to read and write. They were coming from jail, some of them, and some of them were just homeless. And I was teaching them how to read and write and math and arithmetic and mathematics and all that, and helping them get jobs.
That's almost worse, right? Because now you're in this position where people are looking at you.
Absolutely.
Saying,
Zero
hey,
integrity.
Yeah, he's got his stuff together. Look at him. He's helping other people get out of, when they're coming out of prison, to get their lives together. Meanwhile, You're suffering.
Like suffering, man. I felt like trash. I felt the same way I did my whole life. The word outside look good, inside I'm dying. And it took me losing everything, being homeless, begging for change, to realize, I got an illness that requires a certain life of health. All
right. So what gets you to rehab? I mean,
miracle. I'm downtown, right? I had passed out, I slept next to a dumpster, everything you can name, eating out the dumpster, whole nine. Very bad days. Mm-hmm. And I end up downtown, I'm passed out, I don't even have no shoes. And I remember I had a Raven shirt on. I'll never forget that. I'm a diehard Green Bay fan too, which we'll get into later. But anyway, I got a Raven shirt on. And a guy wakes me up, African-American man. I wish I knew his name. He wakes me up. I said, let me die. I said, I'm a failure. I'm a horrible person. I failed at life. It's over. I'm not meant to be here. He says, listen, you're not dying today. I called the ambulance. They're on their way. And he hands me a bottle of water and a pillow. I'll never forget it. And I got to the psych unit at, where was I at? I've been to 20 treatments, so forgive me. It's hard to remember all. Kirkbride. I was at 5th floor Kirkbride. We called all around treatments. None of them accepted me. Somehow Living Grin called. I got in. It was a miracle. And when I went to Living Grin, my life changed forever.
Now, that's a leap, right? There's a leap from waking up next to a dumpster.
Right.
You're in a mental institution.
Absolutely.
How do you grow in that period of time where you are confident enough to step on stage and tell people your journey? Because to tell that journey means you've achieved or you feel a certain way about yourself.
So how that happened was the foundation. I got to Living Grin, and when I got into the basement at Living Grin, I had no shoes, I had nothing. We're in the basement. This is true story. Brother Harold, I love him. Great man. We're picking out clothes because I had a clothing bin at the time. I'm picking out clothes, right? And he looks at me and he says, "You gonna pick out underwear?" I was like, "Who, me?" And then it hit me. I'm in the basement of a treatment facility and I'm going through underwear and I'm picking out the ones that aren't stained. And that was so humbling. And that was just, there was something about that it was like, oh, okay. So this time when I was in treatment, I was there for 78 days. So the 78 days I was there, I treated it like college. I started realizing every night I need to be in different self-help books. Every night I need to be praying. I treated it like I was learning everything I could about my disease and my brain and who I was. So for 78 days, it was like I was hidden somewhere in some land, and all I'm doing is learning myself. I'm reading. I read 4 books in there. I read Hillary Clinton's book. I read a book about the Supreme Court justice. I read Bill Clinton's book. I read a book about Jackie Onassis. Like I treated it like a college of health and learning about myself. So when I left, I already had 78 days of that. Plus I went to a halfway house where I spent about 4 months. So you got to remember, I had like about a year of only health, not of work, not of nothing. I had like a year of only focusing on me. So when I entered into college, I was home. And by that time, I didn't care. Like by that time, I was like, all right, let's go. Like I'm ready to rock. And when I got to college, I got around the right people. They supported me. It was a wrap.
So is that part of what you're trying to do? Is just to help people actually learn who they are and start figuring out these tools? Because these are the tools that we're not taught.
Yeah, absolutely. So I say this all the time. I have a company where I've been blessed to travel the country. I never got taught in school how to start an LLC. Never. I never got taught in school how to pay taxes to an LLC. Never. They don't, not school I went to. Right. So what I'm trying to do is when I go speak, I tell people, what is your gifts and why are you here? You need to figure that out, because once you figure that out, it'll tell you whether or not you need to go to college route. It'll tell you whether or not, it'll tell you what you need to do. Because I believe if a person figures out why they're here, what their gift is, man, so imagine a world where everybody is fighting for what they believe in and fighting for their gifts. Can you imagine that?
Yeah, even if it's not your normal 9 to 5, because at the end of the day, you know, we still like nobody says I was put on this earth to fill in the blank, a job that nobody really wants, but they do it.
Right.
But there's a sense of fulfillment from doing something in your life that is a true passion, and it stops becoming work.
Absolutely.
People will have to drag you away from it because it will start interfering in other things in your life because you enjoy truly doing it.
Absolutely.
That's at least that's what I think. That's how I felt about this project that I'm doing, and it's on my mind all the time because
you can see it.
Yeah, I love it.
You can see it. I listen to some of your other episodes. I listen to the things you're doing, just the way you connect, the way you move. It comes out of you.
I appreciate that.
And the product speaks for itself. That's why it's being downloaded in all these other countries. Yeah. Because people are getting help. People are believing in it. Same thing with me speaking. I can't believe what they pay for this. Yeah, right. I can't believe what I can do. What?
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, here's a question for you. Do you ever struggle? And again, I say this because it's something, especially in the beginning. Mm-hmm. You have ability to communicate. You can stand up and you can connect to people. Mm-hmm. And with that with that all the time comes attention. Praise comes your way. Hey, you're doing this is, and if I start believing that, and I for a second I think I forgot what it was all about. You know what I mean? Like it's not about me. It's not about you. Right. It's about the message. But it's a slippery slope, man. And because that's just ego. Ego will mess with you.
I'm glad you asked me this because I just had this conversation with my therapist.
Oh, good.
Okay. One of the things in my life that I'm dealing with that is I'm coming off first of all, I'm coming off the best year of my life. Mm-hmm. Right? Television segments, publication, you name it, it didn't happen to me for this year.
Right.
But this year, the world is in a global pandemic. So what I've been dealing with is really finding out who's in my circle and who love me. Yeah. Trimming the fat off, right? So like, if you know me and you love me, when you see me, Freddie, how you doing? Well, when I tell you how I'm doing, you will hear publication. Because of what I've chosen to do, it's allowed me certain things and my life is good. But what that's also exposed is you get stay humble.
Yeah.
You get don't think. And what I told my therapist and what bothered me is the reason that bothers me when I hear that is when you say to me, stay humble, you assuming that I'm not.
Yeah.
When you tell me, make sure you stay humble, you assuming I don't go to length to do that. And that's what people don't understand about being a speaker. And that's what they don't understand about exposing your life. There are many times where I don't tell a lot of the good stuff. There are many times where I held back on that because I'm trying not to let them see so much the final project, but I'm trying to let them see the process so that they understand the process is where the real fruit is at, and don't worry about the outcome because that's going to come. And so that's, for me, has been what's hard about being on stage and being blessed to do this, is that so quickly it's always stay humble. Yeah. It's always make sure. But what I tell people is, I came out the dumpster. Trust me on this, man. I don't know about nobody else, but I know me. I can't forget where I'm coming from, because there's still days today, and I'm not saying this because I'm on this podcast, and I'm not saying this because I got a platform. I'm telling you the truth. There are still some days where I smell that dumpster. That's true story.
Yeah.
So I think God put it in me that you're not going to forget, because if you forget, you can't do what you're doing.
Yeah, to me, it just started contaminating what I was doing, and that's one of the reasons I backed away from social media, because at that point it became about the interaction of the content I was putting out, and that was consuming me, instead of just trusting the process, trusting like what you're putting out, and is it changing, is it helping, and if one person downloaded it, then that's fine too. You know, you're just doing what you're passionate about. And I think for you, it's there's still going to be a stigma, right? There's still going to be, you can't, so you can have these people that speak, and, you know, they could be on a TED Talk, but when you say, hey, this is where I came from, there's still going to be like, he's sharing the stage. We're in the same spot. You know what I mean? Like,
and what's the reality of life? Hurt people.
Yeah. No,
right?
they do.
I've learned that no matter, I used to think when I go on a thing, right, when we get workshops, when you speak, you get evaluations.
Okay.
I used to get them back and be like, oh my God. I learned now, it don't matter how great I speak. I just spoke to thousands of people around this country. And guess what? Somebody's always going to have something silly to say. And you know what's even crazier? Some of these people never even been through addiction, don't know nobody with addiction, don't know nothing about substance abuse, don't know nothing about mental health, and they're going to have something to say. You know why? Because they have the power to. Yeah. So I've learned, bless them, change Freddy. This is my truth. This is where I'm at. If you don't understand it, I hope you never get it. Bless you. And that's it. I've just learned that. And you know what I've also learned?
What's that? I
am the giver. I'm not the receiver. It is not my job to receive the message. It is my job to give the message.
Yeah, I think part of the thing I struggle with is the more, all right, take the movement LLC, the more that grows, the more, the better Freddy does. Well, the more people you're reaching, you know what I mean? Yes. So, and so it's this constant thing. Do you ever feel like, cause I've been on stage before, it's usually I've done like stand up, right? And I can do the same routine, and I'm not saying that you're doing the same routine, cause I haven't seen it, but I imagine you have you're a professional speaker. You have something where some days it hits, some days it may not hit as well. In this world where you're trying to change people's lives, or you're trying to help people, how does that affect you when it doesn't hit the way you want it to?
That is a very good question. And I'll tell you real life example I'm going through now. I got blessed to ask to speak at Montgomery County Community College. I spoke there twice. They loved it so much they want me to come back. I got to talk to her about, okay, how are we going to attack this? Because when I share my story don't change. Only the ending does.
Yeah.
So I struggled with, I spoke here. I spoke at this school before. I got to tell this story, because I never wanted to be dull. Yeah. I never wanted to get to a point where, he told that before. That's not what it is. I have to create ways in which I can hit the audience. So a lot of that comes in research of what is the audience? What am I dealing with? Where are they at? Asking the teachers, what are you seeing? Asking administrators, what are you seeing? Like those type of things. So yeah, I'm human. I think anybody that does this for a living, I don't care who you are, unless you're just going to stay one story and go everywhere. If you're really trying to change the world, you got to change with it.
Yeah, it's a little different. I mean, your story is your story. Your life is your life. You're not trying to make you're not trying to make people laugh, and you're not trying to worry about telling the same joke, because it's
Right.
not a joke, and your story is what the most, it's the part that's so moving. I mean,
Right.
my wife asked right before I got on, she says, who you having on? I said, oh, this guy Freddy from the Message and LLC, and I said he was homeless. I said now he's traveling the country.
Right.
She's like, wow, that's pretty amazing. I said, yeah, it is pretty amazing. So you got to wake up on a daily basis and just look around and be like, God.
I got to be honest. I got on the news by grace of God, right? I have been trying to get on the news. And finally I got on the news. There's some nights, man, where I'm tired. You know the grind of this. You know the grind of this, right? And I play that when it comes on, and that lady says, a local man has turned his life around.
Yeah. I saw that.
Yo. And that lifts my day, right? And that reminds me of why I'm doing this. Because no matter what nobody says about me, no matter what my past is, no matter what has happened to me, national TV, a local man has turned his life around. Yeah. Hey
man, let's talk about when you're not having a good day.
Okay.
Let's talk about when one of your old coping mechanisms starts whispering in your ear. Maybe you walk by and you smell somebody smoking some weed, or you see. Walk me through it. I imagine I know your answers to these things, but I want to hear it from you. How do you deal with that, and what do you tell yourself?
Thanks for asking, because nobody ever asked me that. They just think I'm healed.
Yeah,
I'm
right. No, it's not the way it works.
You speak for a living, you're just healed. I'll give you two examples. First example is I love sports and I love football. So there's times when I'm watching a game and a nice Corona and a bag of sour wouldn't be so bad.
Yeah.
I'm just going to be flat out honest. I laugh at it now because that reminds me that I have a mental health and I have substance abuse disorder.
Yeah.
Because if I'm still thinking about something that crazy, and I have a website where I travel the country telling people not to do it, it just is a laughable reminder now of where I'm at. The other part of it is when I start eating real bad. So when I get stressed, I'm having a bad day and things aren't going the way I want them to go, I turn to ice cream, coffee, up at 2 a.m, watching Netflix. Like I get off the grind of where I'm at because something is bothering me. So I go to food for comfort.
It's the same dopamine. It's the same stuff.
What? I go and my network, right? Somebody real close to me, she makes these Bonnie, God grace bless her soul. She makes these banging chocolate chip cookies and they're crazy. Mm-hmm. She'll know because I'll ask her, yo, can you make them? You make them? She'll be like, I just gave you the recipe I made. That my wife, she'll see it. Like, you're going to get ice cream again? Like, that's when they know that, like, I'm struggling. I when I'm having a bad day, it's in the form of eating good, or it'll come in my thoughts when I'm watching sports and I'm happy. I want to add to it.
Yeah, right. Excess.
Yeah, of course. I will never do nothing. Just do it once. It's not how I'm made.
I won't even realize it until I'm eating too much, or anger is my other one. Where I'm feeling angry, or I'm quick to be a victim, or something. That's when I realize, like, hey, I'm not in the best place right now.
To your point, another way that my wife knows something's wrong is if I'm quiet.
Yeah.
My home, my family, they know something's bothering me if I'm quiet for like 5 minutes, like, what's wrong? Because I'm not quiet, like, at all.
Yeah. I mean, this is the first time we talked, but quiet doesn't come across as one of your natural. Right?
No.
Hey, how's your mom? Your mom must just look at this, and it had to be such a roller coaster for her because she knows addiction, right? So she sees you in the worst of it, and to someone who's already been through it, that's got to be brutal. But to see where you are now, it's just man, she just must be walking on the clouds.
Yeah, a couple things to it. One, so my mom struggles with mental health too. She's had 26 years sobriety, but she's had, a lot of stays in the psych unit.
Yeah.
A lot of mental health stays. But she's been doing very well. She hasn't been in one now about 2 years, which is a blessing. She struggled with that. I think two things happened. I think one has brought us together close. I think it's made us closer because she can share with me things that she wouldn't have shared as a kid, saying she's struggling. Because now there's not that pressure of what is my son going to think about. Two, she worked in it. She also worked in the treatment center. So it just is a different childhood. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so our relationship is different. I will say this too. It is such a gift and such a blessing when I can invite her to hear me speak, because I remember calling her from institutions. I remember her sending me money at institutions. It's such a gift because when I get done, for example, my first one, she said, Freddie, I told Mom, I'm sorry, forgive me for all the stuff. She said, oh no. She's like, I can finally die and sleep well because of the man you become. Wow. Like, it's those things. It's her saying to me, like, one day you're going to be working around the president's men and, you're the most successful man in our family and nobody's reached the heights you've reached, Freddie. And do you realize what you're doing? And it's that stuff.
Yeah. Hey, does that add extra pressure? You talked about even I would be crazy for me to be a person that travels the country and still have these things creep in my mind. Does that feeling ever?
I'm actually, to be honest with you, I'm glad that it still comes up because it brings in such more credence to talk to the people. Like, look, you guys see it now, and it's still run through my mind.
Yeah.
Like, I am no different. I just started earlier. Like, I'm glad that it's still there because honestly, I'm going to be honest with you. I think if I never, ever, ever had it ever go through my mind again, I would get bored.
You wouldn't be able to do it. No, you wouldn't be able to do it.
No, like I need to, like my whole house is on psych meds, right? Like, I need that in me.
Right.
It's partying.
It's partying.
Yeah, I tell my wife all the time, I need the people to call me saying I need to go to treatment. I'm in the gutter. I always need to be connected to the real.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that you've already answered the next question. If you had the opportunity to never have mental illness, which would mean you would never be where you are right now, would you do it?
Say that again. I'm confused.
For what you've gone through, right? If you could shape little Freddie and so he never had to struggle, he never ended up next to a dumpster. Really, what I'm asking is that struggle. Do you appreciate all that now, or do you wish you could have never gone through that stuff?
That's a good thing. I used to really say I wish I could have just went on and been a journalist like I was. I looked up to Peter Jennings. I want to be a journalist and report the news and travel the country doing it. So that's why I'm kind of not surprised I'm doing this, to be honest. But I am so grateful. I went to psych units. I went to institutions. I ate out the dumpster. I was bullied. I was choked and spit on and put in the garbage. I was laughed at by numerous amounts of family members, numerous amounts of people. I was glad that I was doubted and he would never be this, or, nobody could have seen it. I'm thankful for all that because the reality of it is that pain wasn't for me. That pain was for the next kid that's going through what Freddie's going through. So yes, I don't regret it.
And that's what just gave me chills, because at that point, when I talk about ego, when you can realize that it's not about you, you might have you had to go through it, but that's all part of the message, right? Because now without that, you're not helping anybody else.
And think about this: there's somebody in my family that I know is going to struggle.
Yeah.
And guess what? Their mom and dad's going to be able to say, Freddie went through that and look where he's at.
Yeah.
And on top of that, in my community, I'm speaking from my community, I love them to death, but I know we don't talk about mental illness enough. I know we don't. So guess what? I'm going to try to make it okay that we can sit down as Black men and say, you know what, men of color, I struggle with mental illness, and you're not called soft. You're not called weird. You're not called scared. I may never change it, but I'm a damn sure go to my grave trying.
Yeah.
I'm a damn sure going to my grave trying to help more kids. I'm a damn sure go to my grave trying to make sure the kids know it's okay because I speak about it and I'm living my life. So yeah, I love everything I went through because I am the true testament of don't judge no book by its color because you don't know what God got in store for somebody.
Yeah. Well, it's almost like you were saying before, suffering, addiction, mental health. It doesn't care what you look like. It doesn't care where you're from. You know, the same things that you talk about, your community. You know, I have on a lot of military and first responders, and it's the same kind of thing. They're going, hey, I can't talk about it because it makes me look soft. Makes me look soft.
You ask God for a brain with a chemical imbalance. Think about how crazy that is.
Yeah.
I get called soft because I was born with a chemical imbalance.
Well, that's the thing. Until people realize that, when you say, hey, I take medication because I have a mental illness. Now,
right.
or anyone in general takes a medication because they have mental illness. A diabetic takes insulin and no one goes, dude, you're soft. Your pancreas is soft. Like,
because you can't see mental illness, right?
Right.
Like because you can't see the diabetic, if his foot get cut off, you know why? Like you can't see mental illness, so they think that you should just get over it. And I tell people all the time, they're like, why couldn't Freddie have done this before? Why is he doing this now? And this is what we were trying to tell you. And we were trying to, Freddie, you could have just, don't you think if it was that easy, that's what it would have just happened?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it just a get the belt out beating, listen to your parents? No. This is a real life mental condition that I really got diagnosed by real people since I was 9 years old that know what they're doing and know what they're talking about. I got a real life mental illness. So I don't care how much beating I could have had growing up. I don't care how much discipline I had growing up. I got high at 9 off my asthma inhaler. My mom ain't have a chance at this.
Yeah. 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 The thing about self-medicating too, because when you talk about mental illness, everyone's got some form. I mean, I've met a couple unicorns out there where, at least on the surface, I'm like, man, that's the happiest person I've ever met. But I'm going to guess there's days when this person's suffering just like everybody else.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, since there is such a stigma, what we do is we self-medicate.
Yep.
And that self-medication, man, that is where, in those same groups that will call you soft for admitting to having a problem with mental illness, are the same people that will not only use but promote self-medication. You know, absolutely. I talked to a Navy SEAL today. And we were just talking about addiction and coping mechanisms for people in the military, and they said it's insane. You know, you can't say that I'm going to yoga or I'm trying these alternative things,
right.
But you can drink a 12-pack, maybe rough up somebody, maybe a family member, maybe a spouse, and it's not even looked at like that's crazy.
You know, we're so, as a society, we're so in touch, or we're so enamored with trying to be normal, trying to chase being accepted. When you would think in 2020, we have transgender bathrooms.
Yeah.
We have schools in California where you can pick, are you man, woman, or do you identify as something else, whatever that may be for you? What are we still trying to chase? What is normal?
It's gone.
I remember somebody at radio told me the only thing normal is a setting on a dryer. What are we chasing that for? Because you know what I noticed? When you are accepted and when you are normal, you still got problems in that world too.
Yeah.
And most of the people in that world are fake, from what I've seen. So I learned real early. I tell people all the time, as soon as they meet me, I eat out of a dumpster and I have mental illness and I take meds. That comes up in the conversation. So I know right away how this is going to work. Because in that way, I don't know, he's crazy. He's not, Freddie's nuts. I ain't doing it. That's fine. I know you're not meant to be in my tribe, and I'm cool with it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's something about just pulling the curtains back, because once you get rid of that shame, you know what I mean? Like it's, you just lay it out there. Well, there's nothing else you can do.
True story, right? I'm in Houston at my first national conference.
Okay.
Right. I mean, the people that's in here, the movers and shakers and higher ed, right? Real college, right? And I remember when I went out to dinner, and I remember everybody's ordering their food and their drinks, and it got to me, and everybody had ordered liquor. And it got to me, and I was scared because, one, I'm trying to network with these people because I'm trying to go to their schools and speak, right? So I don't want to look weak, and I don't want to look like they. And it was there that I decided I'm freeing myself. I'm a person in recovery, ma'am. I don't drink. Do you have water or Sprite or mocktails are good too. Mocktails are great. They have no alcohol in them. They're wonderful. Do you know how freeing it was to take that power of stigma and throw it out the window? Yeah. That where this is who I am, this is what I do, and if you don't accept me, oh well. And to their credit, they accepted me.
Of course. And even, man, listen, I've had experiences, even the people that don't right then and there call me up a couple days later, and a couple weeks later, and they go, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing the same thing."
If I can't tell you who I am, why am I hanging with you?
Yeah.
If I can't tell you who I am and what I'm about, why am I hiding? That's what I've always said about jobs. I tell people all the time I got jobs. They're like, "Oh, I can't talk about it at this job." Well, then maybe that job don't deserve to have you. Because if they don't want somebody who they are and they're real, then maybe you shouldn't be working there.
All right, Freddie, people want to find you, man. How do they do it?
Bless you. So it's themessagellc.com. I'm The Message LLC. Just look it up. YouTube, please. But I want to say, too, and I want to be real about this, I thank you so much for having me. I truly am grateful for the opportunities, because I remember when there weren't opportunities, and I remember when I wanted to quit, and I remember when I didn't thought this company was going to be able to make it. And so anytime somebody asks me to come on, I can't tell you how humbled and grateful I am to be a guest. And thank you for what you're doing, because really, you're saving lives, because you're talking about things that people otherwise wouldn't talk about. You're a true blessing. Thank you.
Man, Fred, I'm going to walk away feeling good after this
you
one,
should.
man.
You should.
Golly. Hey, I appreciate you coming on. I've been a bit of a aloof trying to get this thing going with you, man. I just had a bunch of stuff coming up, but I really appreciate you taking the time. Keep on doing what you're doing, man, because especially right now, man, we need it. We need it.
America's getting exposed, ain't they? I thought after 9/11 we learned that nothing's guaranteed except change. I really thought we learned after 9/11. How many people woke up on 9/11 and thought that the building was going to blow up? Nobody.
Right.
COVID hit. Yeah. That job gone. House gone. Car gone. That side chick gone.
Right. All right, man. Listen, this venue's always open for you. Anytime you want to come back, anytime, just say the word. And
all right, yeah, I'll definitely be back. Oh yeah, for sure.
All right, Freddie. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, bless you, good brother.
All right, everybody. That's it for me. Thanks for Freddie. Make sure you're checking out. All right, everybody. That's it for me. Thanks, Freddie. Thanks for coming on and telling your story. Everybody, please check out The Message. Like I said, the guy's inspiring, educating, and helping people create a new life for themselves. And with that said, I will catch you all next week.